Hey everybody, welcome back. We're the Menschwarmers. I'm Jamie. I'm here with my co-host Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm currently coming to you live on tape from the previously restricted northern county of Muskoka. I'm here with my family. We're having a wonderful vacation from real life, getting out of the city. And a matter of fact, today on a hike in Algonquin Park, a provincial park here in Ontario, Canada, I saw an Orthodox family enjoying the weather like us.
I thought you were going to say like a moose.
Yeah, that would have been exciting. But moose might have been more likely. Like on any given day, you wonder if there were more moose or people wearing tzitzit in Algonquin Park.
Well, the Orthodox they do love to walk. So I guess seeing them out on a hike is not like implausible.
It's very true.
But anyways, the provincial parks are for all, and certainly the Orthodox.
I wonder if they're listeners. It occurred to us.
Maybe. Glad you got out of the city. That's nice. It's a little hot here. But we're getting through these dog days of summer. This is sort of, slow in terms of professional sports is really just baseball going on, but there's lots of, drafts and other stuff we'll catch up on. And one thing that's happening this year that we want to start talking about more directly is the Olympics, which start, just in a few weeks at the end of this month of July, 2024 in Paris. Are you excited for the Olympics, Gabe?
I'm extremely excited for the Olympics. I love the Olympics. I am, one of my professional bona fides. I am a former member of the International Society of Olympic Historians.
Although that's like being a Marine.
Yeah, I choose to believe it's like a Marine.
That,
always, we see each other.
Yeah, you always get to do
that at various conferences and go "Oorah!" and then or something to do with Donovan Bailey. But no, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
Love the Olympics. Do we know yet if Emmanuel Macron did swim in the river?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, he's facing a uphill battle in an election against some pretty spooky far right people.
Yeah, not good.
Right now, I guess we'll know the outcome of that in a few days. But
so really,
we do have
how bad could swimming in the river be?
we do have an Olympic guest coming up later in this episode. That's local, Toronto-born beach volleyball player Sam Schachter, who recently qualified for the 2024 Olympics. This is going to be his second time because he was in 2016 in Rio as well. And I mentioned during the interview, Gabe, I know you weren't able to join for the interview, but I mentioned your connection to his former partner, Josh Binstock, that I think you said your step cousin, something like that.
It's a real modern family scenario.
So nice to play some Jewish geography with a guest, and exciting to hear what he had to say about the qualification process and getting ready for Paris, getting ready for the Olympics.
I'm sure you guys talked about this, but it's extremely cool how they built a beach volleyball stadium in front of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, no burying the lead there. We do talk about that. It is very cool. That's obviously, one of the great French landmarks. It's very funny to think that just like, yep, Eiffel Tower, beach volleyball there. It's like if they just said like, water polo, you guys are in the Louvre. Like, we're just making space where it is.
Originally, they tried to do badminton over the Arc de Triomphe.
But it's not regulation.
It's not regulation, exactly. or badminton on top of the Arc de Triomphe. The court is actually on the marble on top. But I like the water polo in the Louvre idea. That's quite funny.
Sure. I mean,
they we'll see if they in front of the pyramid. That would be pretty cool, like on the plaza.
Sure. I mean, there must be some like historic duels that have taken place in Paris.
Yeah.
And I can only think of ones that are like referenced in Three Musketeers, but like they could find where those places are and do some dueling there.
I mean, that's a good literary corner segue. Is you wonder what sort of sports they're going to recreate various classic works of French literature in.
I guess we'll see. I mean, I think they're going to put their own unique spin on the games, and we're all excited for Paris. So I should say we're talking to Sam this episode. I think we're working on a sort of as much as possible a comprehensive list of Jews at the Olympics, and we should be able to do a more fulsome preview in advance in our next episode. Talk about people to watch. I think the Olympics is a great opportunity for people who aren't always so focused on different amateur sports to, learn about things. And it's nice to have a Jewish rooting interest, I think, for a lot of Jewish sports fans. So, stay tuned. Our next episode will come out in advance of the Olympics for sure and talk about that. And I'm sure talk during the Olympics as well. And maybe have a few more guests talk about what it meant to go. But before we get to the interview with Sam, let's talk a little Jewish sports news, Gabe. Since we last spoke, the NHL season wound up.
It is over. Unfortunately, our beloved bandwagoned, whichever, Zach Hyman led Edmonton Oilers did not win the Stanley Cup. They lost in heartbreaking fashion in Game 7 to the Florida Panthers, who had denied Jew Alexander Barkov on the roster. Once rumored Jew Alexander Barkov, but he's not, and they won. Okay. And unfortunately, Hyman lost. But he did.
He did finish the playoffs as the leading goal scorer for the playoffs, which is pretty exciting.
Exactly, which is exciting for him. We did have immediately after a Jewish player drafted extremely high in the NHL draft. So, Hyman's loss, unfortunately, was brought back by what is the hopeful emergence of Zev Buim, who we've covered on this podcast before, star defender for the Denver Prospectors.
I'm not 100% on that pronunciation. I think I've seen it as Zeev and Zeev. I think the last name is Buiam. Based on my understanding of how Hebrew names are pronounced. So I have a friend
who spells it that way, and she pronounces it Buim.
Buim. Look, I think we'll all have to figure this out. I looked up some tape on this, but it's like you couldn't get a consistent call between different, collegiate announcers. So whether it's Zeev or Zev, I guess we'll see.
My guess it is Zev.
But yeah, he was drafted 12th overall.
It was my grandfather's name.
With 2 E's?
No, with 1 E, and he actually went by Wolf, which is the same thing. It is the Hebrew word for wolf. So I think it, transcends. I don't know what your daycare is like, but grandparents' names are quite commonly coming back these days, I find.
Sure.
And sure, Zev Buim is 20-something, but it is nice to see the first Wolf in the NHL, at least coming in. In a couple of years, maybe we'll see a Mendel. Maybe we'll see a Laser, perhaps a Yankel or a Yisser. We're getting to that era of children's names. So I think that's coming soon.
I guess we'll see if any, this is, he's born to Israeli parents. He's really got the, not hard picking out a Jewish name on that kid. Not like finding out the Hughes brothers are Jewish.
Speaking of which,
his older brother's in development as well. And anyways, as we always say with draft picks, exciting to see. We'll have to track his development. Hopefully we'll see him in the NHL in a couple of years. I don't know what I
think they expect him to finish the college season next year and then join for the last 10 games of the season. So there's, a weird sort of like salary cap circumvention where you can finish the season in the NHL if you play the whole season in college and it doesn't count against your eligibility. So they often get teams who are sort of out of contention, get guys up, to do that. Minnesota, no one's sure how they're going to be next year. They're sort of between eras. They did trade up to get Buim. And we know there are a lot of Jews in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Knowing several of them, we are pretty excited to see him there and hope he gets a big fan base. But a minute ago, you mentioned Quinn Hughes. Some pretty exciting news there. He is the most recent recipient of the Norris Trophy.
Oh, wow.
Which is
that's best defenseman?
Best defenseman. And
I see.
For the second time in 3 years, it's gone to a Jew. 2 years ago, it went to Adam Fox, of the New York Rangers. And then almost certainly after, the U.S. national hockey team announced the start of its roster for the Four Nations Cup next year. Sort of the new pro world championships featuring Canada, the U.S., Sweden, and Finland. And both Fox and Hughes were on the initial roster. So we got at least 2 Jews on Team USA right now. Almost certainly at least 2 more coming. We assume another Hughes brother and Jeremy Swayman will be there.
And that should be a pretty good sign of what is likely to be the Olympic hockey team 2 years from now with pros.
With NHL players back in 2026, yes. So
that's very exciting.
News for the Hughes.
I guess we'll leave it. Yeah, I guess we'll leave hockey there for a little bit. At least we get a few months off, although it seems to creep up earlier and earlier every year. It's like the offseason feels like it's 6 weeks now.
Yes.
Moving on to the other offseason, just wanted to quickly mention that Deni Avdija, the Israeli basketball player, was traded from the Washington Wizards to the Portland Trailblazers. It was sort of a surprise. They got Malcolm Brogdon, the 14th pick.
So we weren't expecting to see that.
Yeah, he had like his best year ever. So given his age as a relatively young guy who sort of got an opportunity to really play some minutes and take a lot of shots, sort of surprising to see him get traded like that. He's still only 23 years old. I think it's I don't know what Washington's plans are. I think they're sort of in a constant rebuild. Portland is just trying to sort of save money for a bit, I guess, and he's a cheap player to get for now at least. But it'd be interesting to see what happens with him. He should be starting in Portland, and they got a young team that they can build around, and he should be pretty useful for them. Hope to see him continuing to improve. He finished in the top. He's fifth or sixth the most improved player. So we'll hope to see him take another leap forward with the Trailblazers. Although, to be honest, I can't really say I watch a lot of West Coast basketball given what time of night it plays. It remains to be seen what will happen to the Washington Wizards Hebrew Twitter account, which I assume was just run by one of their social media guys who
happened to speak Hebrew.
Yeah, I can't imagine they're going to continue engaging with that, but it was great to see how much they did.
Maybe it was a package
engage
deal.
with that based
Maybe
on their...
Deni got traded to Portland with the guy, or he was like his translator, even though Deni speaks perfect English.
I've said this before, that if you're a city with a sizable Jewish population, like Washington, for example, New York, LA, anything like that, and you have a Jewish player, certainly if you have an Israeli player on your team, which albeit has only happened with a few NBA players. Dean Kramer and I guess the Boom boys,
the Boom boys. The Boom boys.
Yeah.
That's
anyways,
good.
If you have an Israeli guy on your team, you really have an opportunity to like capture a Jewish and Israeli market, and I don't think enough teams are cluing into that. So I would like to get to the bottom of the Hebrew language Washington Wizards Twitter page at some point and see what the genesis of that was, because it was a good idea. I think those of us in the Jewish sports world respected that they were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Going to baseball briefly, I just wanted to give a shout out to former guest Spencer Horwitz, who's been really raking with the Jays. Unfortunately, his
looks like he's going to stay though.
Yeah, no, he's been really good. He has reached base every game this year that he's started until tonight. He went 0 for 4 and struck out 3 times. So that's come to an end, but he's a fixture at the top of the Jays lineup now and is hitting really well. And I wanted to mention one other thing in relation to baseball. Since we last taped, the great Willie Mays passed away. This was a couple weeks ago now, so I think most people have read the important things about Willie Mays. Obviously predated us.
Don't worry,
he was 93
he
years
was
old.
not Jewish. Don't get excited, anybody.
He wasn't, but 2 things I wanted to mention. There was a great article written by our friend Louis Keene at the Forward about his relationship with a Jewish San Franciscan named Jacob Shimano, who was essentially his banker, his friend, his financial advisor.
His banker is an odd thing for the one Jewish friend.
Okay, fine. He was a banker.
Right.
He was a banker. He started one of the first banks in California. I think he was a real, upstanding member of the Jewish community in San Francisco. And they had a real friendship that lasted for a long time. And I'm going to quote from Lewis's article. He appeared at Jewish community events so often that Mays was eventually invited into the local Concordia Argonaut Club, a Jewish social club, as the first black member, according to James Hirsch, author of the biography Willie Mays, the Life Legend. So this is something I've known for a while. There is an author named James Hirsch. I believe is Jewish. I've never met him. He spells his name slightly different than me.
We should get that guy on the show. We should have a round
he wrote a biography
between you, this James Hirsch, and the NHL Network reporter Jamie Hirsch.
Jamie Hirsch. Yeah, that's true. Who I don't think Jamie Hirsch, the NHL Network reporter, is Jewish, but James Hirsch, the author, I believe is.
But between the 3 of you, it would be a great roundtable. I'm happy to moderate.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If anyone can put us in touch with other Jamie and James Hirsches, we can get us all together. Until there can only be one. But great anecdote from his book. I do occasionally get see notices of him and think see his name misspelled to the way I spell it and be like, oh, is this about me? And it's like, no, it's about James Hirsch, the author of the great Willie Mays book. So that was widely quoted. I think it was supposed to be great. Gabe, before we get on to the interview, any other sports news you wanted to mention?
As many of you out there are probably chomping at the bit every day to your TV to see the Tour de France has begun this year.
Oh yeah,
it's in my sports beat.
Are they finishing? Are they finishing? And
they are not finishing in Paris.
They're not finishing in Paris. Okay, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, they're not finishing in Paris. They're too busy with the Olympics. They're finishing in Nice this year. There are no Jews we could find in the peloton. However, the Israel Premier Tech team, owned by Canadian Jew Sylvan Adams, is still competing. They have one Canadian rider named Ugo Ul.
Okay. Okay.
But that's Hugo Houle for us non-French speakers. So that's the Jewish connection we have to the Tour de France. Hugo won a stage, I think 2 years ago. And he is challenging for a couple of stage wins again now. So go Hugo.
Okay, that's exciting. Are none of the riders on the team, at least at the French Open?
No, none of the. So, I mean, it's like any other team. You've got a bunch of A squad and a B squad. Sure. Some of the B squad are actually Israeli. Nobody on the A squad currently is. They still have Chris Froome, who won a couple of tours back in the day from Britain. Okay. He is still cranking at it. But it doesn't seem like there are any other Jews actually in the peloton, as they say.
Are there Tour de France riders who will compete in the Olympics as well? Is there an Olympic road race of some sort?
It is unlikely someone will. I mean, the Tour de France is 18 days long, and then there would be 5 days off, and then the Olympics is one race, so it's totally possible. A number of former Tour winners have also won an Olympic medal in the road race. But it's yet to be seen. I think we're going to find out who's feeling healthy. They say the Tour de France is the most grueling sporting event there is. It's pretty brutal. A lot of guys are hoping to survive, so maybe there'll be some, but I wouldn't expect it.
Is there a long distance cycling race at the Olympics?
Yeah, there's one road race. It's about it depends on the day, but it's usually a couple of 100 kilometers around the city that it's in.
I see. Okay, so a marathon, but
it's a 1 day event. Unfortunately, the Tour de France is 18 of those in a row. So it's unlikely somebody will want to sign up for a 19th for free.
I find cycling at the Olympics to be very fascinating. Track cycling, I think is insane. Those guys are men and women who do that have one of the most extreme,
dysmorphic bodies.
Yeah, exactly. Just because they are all legs in a way that is not you see people with legs that big sometimes or strong, legs that are that strong, but usually their upper body's also strong.
Yes.
And it's not that these people don't have a strong upper body, but it's they have designed themselves or are perfect for the sport that they do, by which I mean they have incredibly strong legs and a thin frame to make themselves as fast as possible on the road. It's them if you put one of them and a slalom kayaker together, you would have two matching halves. Those are the most. I think those seem to be the most extreme, disproportionately built people. And I'm not saying this critically at all. Obviously, these people are honed, to a T, to maximize their ability at their specific sport. It's just amazing to see. I love the Olympics for this because it's just you get all kinds, you get all types.
Oh yeah.
From think of the difference between a marathon runner or a race walker and a shot putter. And it's just those people are both incredible athletes that are built entirely differently and are just have designed themselves to do one thing incredibly well, better than anybody else in the world. And that's part of what's so great about the Olympics.
Oh, absolutely.
So why don't we take a quick break and come back with our interview with Sam Schachter.
I can't date women right now because I'm too busy calling myself a piece of shit.
I had a dysfunctional Jewish mother and I had a dysfunctional Native mother.
I had 25 full years of utter struggle and failure.
I started to realize the absurdity of my inability to let go of this monster of guilt.
Sounds like fun, doesn't it? Hi, I'm Ralph Benrig. I'm the host of Not That Kind of Rabbi, where we look at people's spiritual journeys and take a little time for their self-reflection, and maybe yours. You can get it all at thecjn.ca/NTKR or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sam, you just qualified for the Olympics.
That's right. Just this past weekend.
And you are a beach volleyball player. This is going to be your second Olympics after 2012, correct? Or sorry, 2016 in Rio.
Yeah, exactly. 2016, I qualified with my partner Josh Binstock, another Jewish athlete, and missed out in 2020 by one spot. So that was a little heartbreaking, but was able to make a redemption here in Paris for 2024.
So I wanted to ask you about that off the top because it seems to me, and as someone who's trying to track some Jewish athletes who are going to the Olympics and as an Olympics fan in general, it seems interesting that there's so much up in the air until, I mean, as we're taping this, we're a month away from the games starting. and you just qualified a few days ago. So what's the process like, at least in the beach volleyball world, for qualifying for the Olympics?
So there's a couple different ways that you can qualify. Well, technically, I guess 3.
Okay.
You win world championships, you qualify automatically, you gain a berth for your federation. And then you can qualify through world ranking. So the top 17 teams in the world effectively can qualify automatically. It's referred to as a natural berth. And then for the remaining teams, because the Olympics is an inclusive sport, they want representation from each continental sort of tour. They give a berth from one berth from each continental tour. So our continental tour is NORCECA. They do Africa, Europe, Asia, and South America as well.
Okay, so where was the qualifying tournament that I get? You won the tournament that just happened?
Correct. Yeah. So we won the tournament, therefore earning the berth for our continental tour.
Where was that tournament held?
That was in Mexico, in a city called Tlaxcala, and that was basically where they held world championships a couple years ago.
And that was sort of it. I mean, if you didn't win, this would have been a no Olympics year. But now that you did, I imagine a pretty accelerated process of gearing up to get to Paris and to get in, I don't know, finest form and get ready.
Yeah, exactly. We were trying to push for a natural berth. We were sort of hovering around the bubble, even up to a couple months ago. But considering how competitive the race got, we were dealing with some injury issues. We sort of had to pivot and redirect our focus on this continental tour and peaking for this time, because it seemed like this was the ideal way for our team to qualify.
That's great. And what's your plan now in terms of further preparation or when you'll go to Paris and start preparing there?
Yeah. I mean, as you said, we only qualified a couple days ago. So it's still a little bit up in the air. We haven't totally ironed out all of our plans yet, but our federation is fairly organized, and they're sort of helping us create a little bit of a game plan moving forward in terms of maybe we'll play in a competition, maybe we'll do a camp in Europe right before the Olympics, and sort of train with some other Olympic teams sort of in preparation.
Okay. And then do you know much about what the field or the facilities in Paris are like? Is it somewhere new that they've built? I mean, beach volleyball, I guess, tends to have a need for, a natural outdoor setting, although I appreciate that the sand is probably going to be trucked in one way or another. Sure. Is there somewhere new in Paris? Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah, so it will be actually like a pretty iconic location. It's going to be right under the Eiffel Tower. So if you go and you look, if you go and you look,
I don't know if you can get a more iconic location than that. In fact,
exactly, right by the Seine River. So it's going to be really cool. They sort of show the stadium. It looks like a huge stadium. Probably will seat between 16 and 20,000. Patrons, and
wow,
it's going to be pretty cool. It's one of the fastest selling and most watched sports of the Summer Olympics, because it's very viewer friendly, actually. So I think we're second to sprinting. Go figure.
Really interesting. Yeah. It definitely is. I think it's. I would say, as someone who's a casual volleyball fan, I certainly love watching the beach volleyball at the Olympics every 4 years, and more often than that when we see it at the Maccabi Games or Pan Ams and things like that. It has a very it has a great flow to it. Like there's something. It's not exactly the same sport, but as another net sport, like tennis often falters. They say the men's game has become too reliant on aces, and with beach volleyball, it's sort of like every play you can see. There's usually a few rallies, a few bumps, and things like that keeps it interesting. It's not just serve, volley, spike one after the other. It really has some intrigue to it.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. I mean, especially the women's game is much more viewer friendly. It's a little more they get into longer rallies. It's a little more excitement, a little more touches. The men's game is turning into a little bit of a power game, but certainly same cadence as tennis, except maybe a little more back-to-back action with no service fault, less service faults, I should say, and a little more continuous flow.
I mean, I guess you'll have to be careful how high you set the ball and not hitting the lower part of the tower.
Oh gosh, I hope if that's a problem, then our team is in trouble.
So Sam, let's talk a little bit about your background and how you got into volleyball in the first place. You grew up in Toronto, I understand, which I don't know if Toronto has much of a reputation as a volleyball hub. I know there's certainly like Ontario volleyball we talked briefly before about that being a burgeoning thing. Is that was it as simple as someone spotting you as a tall kid and saying you got to be on the volleyball team?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. I mean, I played a lot of sports when I was a kid. Obviously, I was a hockey kid, and I played a lot of golf. I played a lot of tennis. Diversified a bunch when I was younger. My dad played a lot of these different sports, so he just got me into everything. Actually, volleyball was not one of the sports that he played. And, believe it or not, that's the one I took the most interest in, as sometimes that happens with kids. I just sort of had a knack for it. I started playing indoor like pretty much every other kid who gets into volleyball in Canada, and tried out playing beach during the summer one year, I think in grade 9 or something like that. And as more of a well-rounded athlete, like indoor is more a specialized sport for like the really, really tall guys or really strong or very specialized skills. Because I was a little more athletic, I was more well-rounded, which is better suited for beach volleyball, where you have to do all the passing, setting, serving, blocking, defensive skills, attacking, everything. So I sort of had a knack for it, got onto the national team when I was about 18 years old, started playing professionally when I was 20. And now I'm 34, going to my second Olympics and having played over 100 international tournaments, including some multi-sport games. So it kind of just rolled, I guess.
Is that the natural progression of things? Like you start out on in indoor volleyball and then move to beach. Like, is it something that people only sort of start to do as they develop more skills or get a little older?
Yeah, that's about 99% of beach athletes have played indoor first. It's the accessibility of indoor is way more. And actually in school is where you'd normally start playing for your school teams. Right. And no Canadian schools have beach volleyball teams. It's all indoor volleyball.
Oh, fair enough.
So that's usually why it's introduced that way.
That's very interesting. You went to the Maccabi Games a little while back. Can you tell us about that experience a little bit?
I did. It was awesome. It was, I think, my first multi-sport games experience, and I did it with Josh Binstock, who was my Olympic partner as well. So we actually did indoor.
And we should play a little Jewish geography here to say my co-host Gabe, who wasn't able to make it for this interview today, is I believe step cousins with Josh. So there's a bit of connection there as well. We can sort out the exact, or he'll tell. I'm sure he'll tell our listeners a little bit more about the specific relationship, but anyways, we're all mishpacha is the point. But anyway, sorry. So you guys were at the Maccabi Games together.
Yeah, that was amazing. It was so cool because I had never been to Israel before, and we went with our indoor team. So it was sort of a larger group of guys. So it was kind of fun to experience the team aspect and seeing a lot of other, Canadian Jewish athletes and meeting these Jewish athletes from all over the world who are actually very talented and very fun to compete against. And to see, just to see Israel and the fans take interest in our sport. And our team did well. So the whole experience was totally fun, except I got pneumonia right after the tournament was done. So I couldn't even go in to see the old city. It was kind of a disaster. So I'm actually, considering maybe going back next year and playing beach this time. Maybe I'll give Josh a call up and we can run it back one more time. But he might be a little old. He just had a kid, so.
Okay, well, a little trickier.
Yeah.
So after this Olympics, what's life for you like? Is volleyball your full-time gig? Is it a passion? Is it your whole life?
Yeah, I mean, right now it is my full-time job. I do some coaching on the side to sort of subsidize the costs of traveling, and we're not the most supported sport in the world, but obviously enough that we can make a living, just maybe not to become rich like some of the other professional sports. I think after I'm trying to focus on where I am right now. Obviously the Olympics is a huge goal for me. So that's sort of taking up a lot of my mental space right now. And although I have other goals, I think I have some interest in coaching, perhaps at the international level. I coached a college team a couple of years ago. That was a ton of fun. So I've sort of dabbled and I do a little bit of private stuff. I have my own small business where I do coaching when I'm home during the winter and sort of gaps in my summer. And I don't know, maybe I love cooking, so maybe there's something in that for me. But mostly right now it's just volleyball, and then obviously my expertise is in volleyball, so maybe I can do a play off of that somehow.
Right. So you went to the Olympics in 2016. I'm sure you had some interesting, great experiences in Rio. I mean, Paris is a little different in terms of locale, but just as a last question, is there something about the Olympics experience itself that you're looking forward to, or something that you hope to experience this time around in Paris? I'm sure you're very busy, training and playing volleyball the whole time, but Is there something actually about the Olympics that you're looking forward to, the ceremonies, or something that you get to? Is there something you get to spectate that's exciting that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, great question. Well, actually, last time we weren't able to walk in the opening ceremonies because we had a match the very next day at like 11 o'clock.
Really?
Yeah, so we had to sort of make a performance decision to not walk and prioritize our competition. So I think this time I'm really hoping I can attend the opening ceremonies and sort of feel that excitement where, everyone's hopes are very high, and it's a little bit of a different vibe than the closing ceremonies. And then also, getting to watch some other sports. I think last time I was so overwhelmed by the whole spectacle of it, and also so focused on our competition that maybe my appreciation level for being at the Olympics wasn't as at the level as I think it is now. Having missed one and having a renewed appreciation for what it means to be at that Olympics. I'm thinking I'm hoping that I can go and enjoy the actual the whole thing in a different way, in a different perspective.
Well, it's really exciting, and I hope our listeners can keep an eye out for you at the opening ceremonies. It's on a boat this year. I mean, they're still planning on that, apparently.
I heard about that.
As crazy as that sounds, but you should be on the Team Canada boat floating down the Seine. You'll be the tall Jewish guy waving to everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Can't miss me.
Great. Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, Sam, and good luck with all the preparation and planning for Paris. We really wish you the best of luck representing Canada and Jews as well, I think, to a certain degree. So good luck with everything.
Appreciate it so much. If you want to follow my stories and check out everything at the Olympics, you can just follow me on Instagram at Sam Schachter, and I'll be posting about everything Olympics. Thanks.
Thank you so much for quarterbacking that interview, James. It was really nice to see to hear you and Sammy, I guess, volleying it back and forth, setting and bumping the questions and answers over the net.
Sure.
You really dug in your heels and set it up there for him. It was great.
That's good.
One thing I wanted to mention, now this is over, something that I found during the break that I thought would be fantastic. We talked about some of the historical venues happening during the Paris Olympics earlier on. My favorite one that I found so far is that the equestrian events, dressage, show jumping or whatever, are happening in the courtyard of the Palace of Versailles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is very cool.
So,
if only Louis Quatorze could see them now.
Could see them now. Like, all of the greatest horses in the world are coming to perform for my amusement is something he would have loved. Not knowing him personally, but I think he would have.
I got to imagine that most people are aware of the Olympics going on, but at the same time, that there will be stories of like tourists in Paris who just wanted to get to Versailles and can't believe that there's a horse in their way and like did not understand that it's closed today. Like, it's such a tourism capital, obviously.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've been to Paris a few times and it's obviously an amazing place. But
have you ever seen
the idea of just like, no, I want to go up the tower, and it's like, sorry, volleyball. Like, we're closed for volleyball
yes.
today. Like, no tower today. Anyways, I'm sure they've still found a way to bilk tourists out of money to go up to go up the Eiffel Tower.
Have you ever seen the Mel Brooks History of the World Part 1?
Actually, I've never seen it.
It's quite good, and it's a little outdated now, but the Court of Versailles section of it. There's a long human chess.
It's good to be the king.
Yeah. There's a long human chess, which really fits with the dressage happening in the Palace of Versailles.
Yeah, that's true. No court tennis in the Olympics though. I'm sure there's some old like royal court tennis courts in France.
Similarly,
Paris,
I would say on the other hand, they're having what's the big courtyard in front of the Louvre, whose name I forget. It's got the spire in it. I don't know much about Paris. I've never been, but that courtyard is hosting freestyle BMX events, which I feel like equally would have been Louis XIV's nightmare.
Huh.
Just like, peasants are riding bicycles in front, in my courtyard.
There's no court tennis, but there will be squash, which I think is the most closely related to it. Not in 2024, but in 2028.
Squash is coming next time.
For the first time in LA. And I think that'll be, I would put money that there will be a Jewish participant in the Olympics.
Yeah, some Gailey.
Just because.
Maybe a Prince
Squash is a pretty Jewish sport. It's as close as you can get to like Brooklyn handball at the Olympics.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Anyways, thanks for listening, everybody. As always, we are put out by the Canadian Jewish News. You can find our podcast and articles and everything else on the Canadian Jewish News website, thecjn.ca. We're executive produced by Michael Freeman. Please like and subscribe to the podcast and recommend it to your friends and family members. You can follow us on Twitter at Menschwarmers.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks with a much larger Olympics-focused preview, telling you who's Jewish in the Olympics, who to look out for, what countries to pay attention to, and most importantly, what countries with a history of anti-Semitism to cheer against, which is an equally important piece of Olympic fandom.
See you next time. Thanks for listening.